Welcome back to the coffee show, everyone. I am your host, Kirk Pearson, and I'm joined today by Rhys Woods from Ona Coffee. Welcome to the coffee show, Rhys.
Thank you for having me. I just want to say it's an honor and a privilege to be here. And I think I'm the first non-famous coffee person you've got on. So,
Well, mate, there's plenty of time for that. But this is one I've wanted to do for a while, and we discussed a few weeks ago. But exciting topic today. So, a good resource for anyone that's thinking about opening a cafe, dreaming, or in the process of 10 things that you need to know before opening a cafe and running a successful cafe. And I guess this is an interesting angle to come from because obviously in the last year I've opened one and I'm opening another one soon. And your day job is pretty much managing other cafes that you supply in your job. So there's a lot of expertise here that you'll get, whoever's listening, and I'm really excited to break this one down.
yeah, it's pretty much a lot of my day-to-day is really just supporting cafes in whatever they need, really, whether that's, coffee training or, advice on, staffing or costing or whatever it may be. I kind of see myself as just someone who is supporting cafes to, live out the vision that they had, when they first started.
And so let's break that down a little bit for a little bit more. So you work for Ona Coffee, O-N-A.
Yes.
So that's the coffee company that Sasha Sestich started.
Correct.
Way back when. And you work in Melbourne, but also cover some South Australia and Western Australia.
Yes, so I do SA, WA and Tasmania, obviously here in Victoria as well. So I do account management and sales, but it's a little bit different the way we do it. I guess it's, we do a little bit of everything. So it's not just, sales or, account management, but we do the training for all of our customers as well. So it's a pretty varied role. We probably don't have as big a portfolio as, some other roasters, but, it allows us to really connect with the cafes that we have on a really deep level and really support them, as much as we can. So, every day looks a bit different, from sales to coffee training and, conversations like this where I'm, giving advice and helping people on, the business level and just running their cafe.
I think this one will apply. So obviously we're obviously giving an Australian perspective in some way, but this will apply no matter where you are in the world. I think the 10 lessons, the 10 things that we'll discuss, you can apply anywhere across the world. So if you're listening from overseas, don't think this doesn't apply to you. It does. Before we get into it, we did this thing. I'm doing this thing now where I'm trying to cut back on my coffee consumption, but I'm doing it in maybe like an unhealthy way because I just have all my coffee in the one sitting now. I call it getting jacked up. So we just got jacked up before we started this podcast. So I'm feeling jacked up. I'm ready to roll. But anyway, so 10 things to know about opening a cafe. Let's go. Number one. Actually, before I do that, I'll run you down through what we will discuss here as well as that. So obviously we want to go through the 10 commandments, let's say. Best of Panama news coming up later. World Brewers Cup. I just attended. You watched a lot of interesting perspective there. And we'll finish on a little bit of UFC MMA content. So, I mean, if you're a fan, stick around for that because we both certainly are.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
All righto. If you're opening a cafe, my first thing that I would look at, number one, location. Location is probably one of the most important decisions you'll make if you're opening a cafe, right? A lot of retail-facing businesses usually. So is it accessible? Can you operate at full capacity every day? So, a lot of places in Melbourne might only be effective operating Monday to Friday. So can you operate every day? Is there foot traffic? That in hindsight, opening my cafe, I think foot traffic is probably one of the most important things you can imagine. Are there tenants in the offices that are around you? Are they going to be there for much longer? Will work from home affect you? That's a big thing in Melbourne now. So I think they're my things regarding location. What are some offerings you have?
Yeah, I think, probably the first thing even before location is, the vision of your cafe. And I think that kind of leans into the location. If you have a vision of doing high traffic takeaway, but then you're looking for a location in the suburbs, it's like maybe a bit of a disconnect there. So the vision of what you want to do for your cafe and then finding a location that's actually going to fit what you want to do. Are you going to have more dine-in? Are you going to have more takeaway driven? If you're more takeaway driven, you probably don't need as much space as well. So the size of your cafe and what you're actually trying to achieve is really, really important.
Do you think the corner block thing is like a big thing in terms of location? Because sometimes I do see those corner blocks, and I think the best example of that in Melbourne might be Maker's store on Little Burke Street.
yeah.
So they've got this like real sexy corner block store, well lit. It just looks unbelievable. So, you can imagine, I think some of the Roslyn cafes overseas as well, they just look fantastic. Corner block vibes. What do you think?
Depends what the price is, if it actually matches what you're trying to achieve and what you think you can do in that space. What's your, how much do you actually want to produce out of that space? Is it actually worth having that exposure? Are you more like destination as well? So depending on your branding, if you're starting out, maybe you do get a corner block, so you actually just get that exposure. So,
have you ever read, and I really want to endorse this book on this podcast, What I Know About Running a Coffee Shop by Colin Harmon?
I have.
Probably the best book on this subject you can possibly buy. It's I think it was written nearly 10 years ago now, but still applies. If you are thinking about it, get that book. It would be my advice. You've read it?
I have, yep. Big red book.
Big
Easy
red
to
book.
see.
Another thing, natural light.
Yes.
I can't discount enough how good natural light is. Like, I love where we're at in King Street just there, but the one knock I have about it, there's no natural light. It's all, artificial light, but natural light, it's such a good thing. And you really feel it as a human.
Yeah.
So like nowadays I wake up for work quite early. I go to the cafe. Sometimes I work, 12, 14 hours, just like depends what happens that day.
Yeah.
And then I go home. So I don't actually see the sun the whole day. And I'll tell you what, you feel it. Like, I'm a happy and content human being, but still, natural light, it's good for you.
Yeah, here in Australia, like that north facing, like my apartment that I live in is south facing, and we get absolutely no sun. It's freezing, and we're always looking for a north facing apartment just so we can actually get a little bit of sun in. So I think it definitely adds to the vibe and getting that sun coming in and people wanting to stick around. But again, it depends on what sort of cafe you want to run. If it's going to be someone that, you want people to come and stay around for a while, then that's going to be something that would be really valuable.
Moving on from location, you satisfied with location now?
Location's good.
Lease. Number 2 is lease. Chances are you probably can't buy your own site, so you're going to need to rent one. So number one thing when considering a lease or negotiating one, get a lawyer to look over it. If you're thinking about doing it, you must have a lawyer. Do you agree with this one?
Absolutely. It's probably where I have the least amount of experience with. So I think anywhere that you can leverage someone or a service that can actually help you with these sorts of things, I would be leaning into that and getting as much help as possible. And I know very little about leases, so I'll definitely be seeking out someone who knows more than me.
I'll tell you what, a little anecdote of mine that I can give is that we are about to open our second site, which is kind of within a bigger building. And there was a clause, we got our lawyer to look over it. There was a clause in it where on the weekend when other tenants weren't in the building, but they had to turn the aircon on for us, there was a clause in it where they could charge us $250 an hour to use aircon. So if you did a whole 8-hour day, you can't, as a cafe, you cannot afford $250 an hour for aircon. And, it's at the landlord's discretion as to whether they charge it or not. But if we had signed it and not considered that, then, they have the power. So that could have backfired badly. And, we got that down to $10 an hour, which is
nice.
Much more reasonable. But still, this is why you have a lawyer look over your lease agreements. Other things to consider is like, all right, you might be considering sometimes paying a higher lease in a better area is a good thing, but you need to weigh up whether what the rate charged is and whether you can actually make those payments as a cafe. Have you had any? Yeah,
I mean, the lease is probably going to be one of your biggest fixed costs, right? Labor is probably going to be the most expensive cost that you're going to have for your business, and then the lease and the rent is going to be right up there. So as soon as you sign that lease, whether it's $20,000 a year, $50,000, $100,000, you already know how much you need to make in revenue. And is that space that you're operating in going to allow you to make the amount of money that you need to make for your business to be sustainable? So if you're paying way too much in a really small space and you're only selling coffee, you probably need to be in somewhere that's a very high foot traffic area. If you're in the suburbs, you can maybe afford to have slightly bigger space, but you probably need to do food as well to get the revenue where you need it to be, depending on the vision for your cafe.
Yeah, and as well, like it's something you shouldn't rush to either. Like if you rush, that's a serious blunder, because sometimes letting things pass by is really good. You know, you can dodge a bullet per se, but definitely don't rush. Some other things that I would suggest to anyone looking that is actually available to you, but if you're not experienced in this kind of thing, you could consider, see if you can get a contribution from your landlord to actually build the cafe, because sometimes the idea behind a commercial landlord is they want a good tenant that will be there for many, many years. And if they see the prospect of that happening, they may actually contribute to building your cafe. Like,
Yes.
ask for a rent-free period. I mean, don't ask, don't get. So first 3 months of your lease, you might actually get off, which kind of assists you and your business getting off the ground. And play the field. You know, be like a 2025 single man in Melbourne. Just like play the field. You know, you want to have that Tinder effect of leases. So like, have a few things on the go. Don't set all your eggs in one basket, and because you might find something better or something might fall through. You need to have options. So
yeah, especially if you're going to be spending so much of your time there, like as a new business owner as well, 50, 60 hours a week, you know, you want somewhere that you feel really confident with. And if you want your cafe to be around for a really long time, you know, you have to get that right. And that's going to really set your business off in the right direction.
Number 3 of the 10 commandments, let's call them. Quality. Are you a quality coffee shop, or are you Speedy Express coffee shop? Let's just say. I don't know what other categories. Like, I think you need to decide from the start if you want to be a quality focused business or not. And let's face it, there's room for both, like quality focused businesses and those that are just more focused on convenience. And that's fine. Like, I don't have any judgment for them, but I think you need to make that decision from the start. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah, it depends, you know, quality, what is quality as well? That's going to be different for everyone. You know, I have mates that, you know, just drink iced coffee and they love it. And, you know, then there's, you know, people like us who, you know, will easily pay $30, $40, you know, for a cup of coffee. So defining what quality is to you and also what you want to give to your demographic. So yeah, really define what that is. You know, for me personally, you know, quality would always be, you know, a really high principle and value for me. So I'd be seeking out, you know, the best products that you possibly can and just research what's the best in the field. What is the best coffee out there? What is the best chocolate, chai, tea? And do you want to go also to, you know, the highest level of all of those things, or do you want to focus on one? Do you want to have really high quality coffee, and do you want your like other ancillary products to just be kind of, you know, an ancillary to that product? So thinking what is your spread of products as well, and what you want to lean into and what you want to tell the world that your business is.
But the coffee consumer is so fascinating around the world, right? So no matter where you are, like coffee consumers are really, really interesting. It's like, I'd love for like more studies to be done on this, because I've seen in working previous jobs that I've done where a cafe owner, to save money, will actually they'll switch their suppliers or something to something that's lower quality, thinking, yeah, I'll save money. I can still offer the same product effectively, and people will be fine with it. But that's not always the case. And value is not always measured in finances. Like, people might not necessarily, and I give this assessment all the time. Like, if you're a cafe that 2 out of 10 times you make a really good coffee, but you charge $4.50, let's say, for a latte, or if you're a cafe that does it 9 out of 10 times, but you charge $6 for a coffee, I actually think that second example is the one that gives better value. So we always measure it so much in finances, but like the coffee consumer, that it's a pretty important choice of something they're consuming, putting in their body. And, you know, some people just need it for the caffeine hit. Don't blame you. But some people want it for the quality and the feeling of ritual, and, you know, it's something they're consuming, putting in their bodies. Like, they don't always want the cheap, crappy option.
Yeah. Yeah, I think people are willing to pay more. I think, the boom of signature drinks as well here in Melbourne is people are clearly willing to spend more on those products. It's just what they see the value in. And I would say, higher quality products generally, and, we talk about specialty coffee, generally the difference is just the amount of sorting that coffee goes through, that it has, no defects, it's a clean cup, it's sweet. So you're going to get a more consistent coffee already. And when you pay your money, you want to know what you're getting. You don't want to, 50% of the time it's good, 50% of the time it's not. Maybe I will want to pay a little bit more, but I know what I'm getting every single time.
One saying I have with, one of the next points I was going to make is like choose really good suppliers and develop a really good relationship with your suppliers. Like your rep, for example, you're a rep for a coffee company. And so if a customer has an issue, you're the first point of call for a lot of them, I'm sure.
Yep.
But the one thing that I always advise people now, because I've worked as a rep previously, treat your suppliers as if they're customers. So this I know this kind of might not make sense to a lot of people. I'll give this analogy. I used to work for a milk company, right? I probably hate me for saying this on a podcast, but I'm going to give the example anyway. Every now and then you have issues, right? For example, a delivery truck is broken down that day, or for some reason, things happen. If there's an example where I personally have to go out and help a customer, and so I get two customers ring me, the one that treats me really good and the one that puts me on blast all the time. If I can only help one of those people in a disastrous situation, who do you think I'm going to pick? Like the one that treats me better. It's like at the end of the day, your rep is a human too. And if you treat them good, they will work harder for you. You'll get more value out of them. Would you agree with this?
Absolutely. Yeah, there was a coffee producer in El Salvador, Gilberto Barona, who sadly passed away about 5 years ago now. But he said the coffee industry is the industry of people. And, I really feel that. And, traveling to Nicaragua earlier in the year as well, it really hit me. And you've traveled to Origin as well. But when you see the people behind the product, it just really, it's all about the people at the end of the day. So how you treat people is absolutely everything, whether that's your suppliers, customers, staff. So that is super important. And another book that's really, really good is called Setting the Table by Danny Meyer. And it's essentially on hospitality as a restaurateur in New York. And he actually has a hierarchy of needs. And it's essentially, customers are number one, closely followed by staff. It's almost like the same. So customers, staff, and suppliers. And then after that, it becomes your, if you have investors. So you have to look after, and your community, sorry. So it's customers, staff, community, your suppliers, and then, the financials kind of take care of itself. But that community and suppliers, looking after your suppliers, like you said, they're going to work harder for you. And gaining those relationships with them as well is super important to get the best out of their product. And again, if you're going to get out of a sticky situation, they're going to help you more if you treat them really well.
Look
if you
after
offer
your
them
suppliers.
a coffee,
Just
look after them.
It's one of the best things you can do as a business. It works for you. And I know that they're, your supplier and you pay them effectively, but I seriously suggest you do that. Yep. One other thing, and I've got an interesting anecdote for you, is don't be afraid to charge, under this guise of quality, don't be afraid to charge what your product's actually worth. So I know someone who started a cafe in Melbourne this year, and they've done really well. So they're selling, they're pretty much an espresso bar, but they're selling 600 cups of coffee a day. They use really good quality coffee, really good quality milk. And I said to him, congratulations, you're doing great. I'm happy for you. He goes, yeah, but I'm not making any money. Yeah. I said, what do you mean? And it's like, oh, well, we're still not making money. And I've done some investigating. They're like, they just don't charge very much for their coffee. They're some of the cheapest in the area, but use some of the highest quality ingredients. I'm like, oh, dude, that's a sticky situation. So if you're doing all that, and as an owner, you're not paying yourself, you're really not setting yourself up sustainably. So it's one of those things you have to get right.
Yeah, I find it really interesting that no matter where you go, does coffee has to be $5 for some reason, even if you're CBD, out in the suburbs, regional. For some reason, everyone has to charge the same, and their businesses are definitely going to be different. Like we've talked about, lease is going to be different. The quality of products that they're serving, they might be paying their staff more. All of these things, there's so much nuance that goes into your business structure, but then for some reason, everyone just charges the same. And what do you need to charge to be sustainable? And that might be, in this case, that might be serving less people, but actually doing less work and making more money at the end of the day.
Well, I find this interesting because Australians really aren't used to paying much for coffee at all in a global context. And the coffee industry, I guess, in here specifically, is in this interesting spot because consumers don't feel like they're winning because they feel like coffee's too expensive. And hospitality don't feel like they're winning because we can't charge enough and record amounts of, hospitality shops or cafes and restaurants closing here. So it's just like an interesting point of convergence. But I saw there's a comedian in Australia. His name's Lehmo, Anthony Lehman. Is that his name? Something Lehman.
I have no
anyway,
idea.
He was in Paris the other day, and he bought a coffee and he said he got charged like 18 Australian dollars for a latte.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm never complaining about Melbourne coffee prices again. And I asked, I put this question out to anyone listening who maybe doesn't work in a coffee shop or is perplexed by this question. Have you traveled overseas recently and got a coffee? Was it cheaper? Was it as good? Chances are probably not. So, I mean, you haven't got it that bad.
Yeah, absolutely not. Yeah. I mean, I think he was on the he was on the Champs-Elysees, so it's going to be already way more expensive. But yeah, I travel. My wonderful girlfriend Emmy, she's from France, and we go to Paris pretty regularly. And yeah, it's €5, and if you do the conversion, it's about 8-9 AUD for standard coffee over there. And service is pretty average. They do have different, I guess, service standards. But yeah, the coffee is not, or it's on par with, Melbourne, but it's so much more expensive. I was in LA recently as well. Same thing. It's like $5-6 USD. You do the conversions, like $9-10 AUD for a standard cup of coffee. And it's, not any better than what it is here in Australia. And I think we've just, even through Asia as well, you've just been in, Jakarta and pretty much everywhere else around the world pays more for a standard cup of coffie than in Australia.
Developed countries, we probably have the cheapest coffee.
Yeah, and then a lot of people say Melbourne's coffee capital of the world, and I don't think that base level price actually reflects the quality or the the quality and the value that people see in coffee.
Can I give you a hot take?
Give me a hot take. Let's do it.
Melbourne coffee culture is probably going to be killed by 1, work from home, and 2, AI. I think a lot, like the work from home thing is just going to kill Melbourne coffee culture. Like I don't blame people for wanting to work from home. I would probably do it myself if I had a job like that. I don't blame them. And AI, I just think it'll sweep through a lot of sort of desk jobs in the next 10 years. And I think that'll impact, workers traveling to the city. But I think Melbourne coffee culture will change a lot in the next 5 to 10 years. And it'll be primarily because of those two things. And we'll regret it when it goes.
Yeah, I think we need to, definitely innovate and change. But I also think, you need to, like a good friend, Ollie, he owns a coffee roastery up in Cairns. And he said to me, when you buy something from somewhere, it's a vote for them to stay in business. So where you're spending your money is just like giving votes for people to stay in business. So if we want this culture to stay the way it is, this vibrant, Melbourne coffee culture that we all love, then, people, you're going to be needing to give your vote to the cafes and the businesses who are doing well, and you want them to continue to operate. I also think we do need to adapt though, and to meet people where they're at. And if it does mean adapting and changing the way that we operate, again, innovation, technology, it's always changing the way that we're operating. And we just need to, if people are working from home, then we need to find ways to give them good coffee at home, whole bean coffee, teaching them how to brew, giving them the tools that they need to make excellent coffee at home, but also still come into the cafe and buy a coffee from you as well.
And this is why I advocate for people like, I think with our business as well, we're looking to probably focus on tourist areas from now on if we're ever going to open a store, because that's still a very vibrant, section of the economy. But as well, I think, what you're exactly right. Catering to people that, brew coffee at home, there's still a big market there. But cafe culture, I guess, is having a bit of a blockbuster moment. A lot of people move from renting videos at a physical store to going to Netflix. And I think the cafe industry is globally having a bit of a blockbuster moment. So
yeah, I think everything moves in cycles as well. So, people go into cafes and then, they're working from home more and making coffee at home. But I think it'll come back because that connection, meeting up with people, going to the office, that culture that you build when you actually connect with people. And I think that's what makes cafes will always be around, because people want that connection, and cafes are a perfect place. Like, I actually went into your cafe yesterday and, just went there for a coffee, and I saw your sister who was working, who I hadn't, seen for a while, and had a good chat with her. And then I saw a mate, Alex, who I know in the coffee industry, who now works at Common Folk. Then I saw the owners of Asoy. I met them, and we were kind of it was just this little hub of, people connecting and talking, and, it was, really amazing to see. So I don't think, it definitely is at risk of reducing if, people just, aren't going out to cafes anymore. But I think they still will be there. And, cafes like yours are a great example of creating, that culture that I think will still exist. But there may be cafes that don't last as well.
And this is what I think. A barista will never ever be replaced by AI or machinery, because there's a robot cafe just up the road from us. I don't think I've ever seen anyone go there for a coffee.
No,
I literally don't think I've ever seen, you don't have to talk to anyone. You can just order it and a robot will make it for you. I've never seen anyone buy a coffee there. And because in a world of AI and technology supremacy, I guess, the role of a barista will probably become more important, actually.
Yeah.
Having that human connection, having that, this is that experience that I really like, that artisanal experience. I think that part of the industry will just become more and more valuable. Yes, I know I just said there'll be less coffee shops, and I stand by that, but the value of that will probably just grow and grow.
Yeah, I think it'll kind of split off. And at the moment, I think we're trying to do everything in one. We're trying to do high volume takeaway service, but then, do pour over with that connection and, that competition style, almost this like omakase style service in a brunch style cafe. So I think moving forward, we need to think about the business that we want. We almost need to, if you're going to do a takeaway coffee shop, I think innovation, automation should be all about that, super automatic machines and doing what you need to do to pump out that coffee. But then I also think you'll have that almost like analog, coffee, people making it manually in front of you, having that experience, omakase style service that, places like Jakarta, Japan. So I think the coffee shop model might splinter in a way, but in a good way, because we can focus on giving the value that people want. And, the people getting a quick takeaway, they're not being drawn away from someone making a pour over. And then, my takeaway coffee is taking 10, 15 minutes. They can get what they need. And then the people that want that experience can get the experience that they want.
This is an excellent segue into the next point, which is invest in technology and equipment. And I think this is, of all the things that Johan and I, my business partner, did right, I think this is probably the number one thing we got correct, and that is investing in the right machinery. And I'll preface this with this statement. As a business person, you need to be able to properly categorize what's an investment and what's an expense. Paying your electricity bill is an expense. Paying your lease is an expense. Buying a really good quality ice machine that services all your needs without having to go out of the cafe is an investment. Buying a good quality coffee machine that is a bit more efficient is an investment. Buying a grind by weight grinder is an investment. You get a return on those things. You'll save money in other areas. You need to properly categorize what's an expense and what's an investment, and there's a big difference between the two.
I actually steal this from you. I think it was one of the early podcasts that you did, and I tell this to people all the time, and I think it's absolutely brilliant. I'd put in your staff as well. I think that's an investment too.
Yep.
A lot of people say, and I think I said it at the beginning of the podcast even, your biggest expense is going to be your labor, but, flipping that and, your staff is an investment. They're the face of your business. So things like that, an Uber Milk, whether it's, whatever automation you can think of, those things give you a return. I use it all the time. I think it's brilliant and, just gets people in the mind that, I'm actually going to get a return out of this. But I would say, probably the biggest investment that you can make is actually in the people and your staff, even though it's going to be the highest cost, but they're going to give you easily the biggest return on your investment.
Well, we've been open for 1.5 years nearly now, and we're about to lose our first staff member because she's moving overseas. And I think retention in a cafe is like really difficult, but I'm pretty proud of that she can't stay in the country any longer. She's Japanese. But we haven't had one person resign yet, and they could probably go off and get other jobs. But those things are coming later in the podcast.
Coming later.
I don't want to spoil
Cool.
those. But back to investing in equipment. I think the number one investment we've made as a business, this is going to be a really interesting one for a lot of people, is actually in our ice machine.
I was going to say,
our ice machine has made us more money than our coffee machine has. I really do feel like that. So we invested in a what's called a Hoshizaki ice machine. Produces these really thick, dense ice cubes, 80 kilos of it a day. Have not had to go outside of the shop to buy a bag of ice once. And in Australia, that's really difficult because obviously the summers here get pretty hot. But the demand for ice drinks has never been higher in the world. The demand for cold brew for us, one of our number one selling products is cold brew. And we use ice as part of the procedure for making that. And honestly, getting a good quality ice machines is probably one of the biggest investments / game changers you can make as a cafe today.
Are they sponsoring the podcast?
They should. Hoshizaki, if you're listening, you're like
the way you were talking about it, your eyes just lit up. There was this love in your eyes, the Hoshizaki.
I have people come into because I've spoken about this on the podcast before. I have people come up that I've never met before and like, can I see your ice machine?
Yeah, where's the ice machine?
It's the best.
Yeah. Glenn at CL, I think they recently just got one as well. So he's absolutely loving it.
Yeah.
And the quality of ice, going back to quality as well, the quality of ice in your drinks for dilution and, the taste of the ice as well. If that's going to be a major ingredient in those drinks, then, something like that as well is going to be a massive game changer for the way the drink expresses, right?
But this is one of those things that people might listening to this be like, oh yeah, whatever. I don't believe that. But believe me, please, the ice is so important because let me give you an example. If you're the type of person that wants to sit on your drink for like an hour or 2 hours, this Hoshizaki ice will literally stay solid for that long. And it won't melt and then dilute the drink, which means it stays higher quality for longer. Like it's just one of those things. It's like the quality is better. The capacity is higher because you invested in the right machinery, and the appeal as well. Like it looks sexy having that Hoshizaki ice in your thing. Again, just if Hoshizaki, if you're listening, you need to sponsor me.
Get this man a sponsor.
It's one of those things that just, it's a game changer. I don't want to spend too much time on ice though, because other things that you can invest in, grind by weight grinders, one of the best innovations in coffee today.
Yeah, I think agree. I think weighing coffee was probably the one thing that I just really disliked about making coffee. And if technology can take that part away, but I don't know anyone has coined this term. I don't know whether I heard this somewhere, but I call it, everyone has a different automation threshold.
Explain that.
So, some people still think a puck press is too much. They still want a manual tamp. They still want to make espresso manually. They still want to, don't even want to use volumetrics. They think, I want to turn the shot off. So things like volumetrics, puck press, grind by weight, some people will accept those, but then an Uber milk's too much. I still want to steam my milk. And then there's super automatic. Some people are like, if a machine can make the espresso, steam the milk for me, happy days. And then some people check out there. So everyone I feel has a different automation threshold of where they think, nah, that's too far. Robot cafes, I think that's where I check out. I'm like, that's my level of like, nah, I check out, but yeah.
There's some people just have this blanket objection to automation in cafes as well. So Johan and I went to Bali a few months ago, and he always stirs me up about this. But we went and saw this guy who used to work in the coffee industry and now he's a beer brewer. And he said to me, he just flat out thinks that Uber milks are bad.
Yeah.
So Uber milk is like an automatic milk steamer and tampers. He said automatic tampers ruin coffee, and I'm just like, oh, get me out of here. Again, Uber milk, you should sponsor me too, because I give you so much good publicity. Yeah. That's another investment. Right? It's like a $14,000 piece of equipment, but it saves me a staff member over the entire year, which is like $50,000.
Yeah.
So there's a $36,000 difference there. So investment, expense, you need to categorize the two. And the Uber milk, that particular device, it actually heats coffee without adding moisture to it. And so it doesn't dilute the milk. So long story short, the coffee tastes better too. So it's like pairing together this technology is like so important. And the Uber milk, and we focus a lot on milk drinks at our cafe, it's one of the best things I've ever purchased.
There's another, things like a Quinn spin, and there's some like other portafilter cleaner machinery, but I think that's actually my least favorite part about making coffee is like knocking the coffee out, wiping it out with a tea towel. Like that is easily my least favorite part of making coffee. So something like that, even just for like the people making coffee as well, if that alleviates, some stress off them so they can actually do their jobs and enjoy their job more, that is well worth it.
Before we move on to the next one, you guys have started doing this at Ona, and I was actually speaking to Sasha Sestich about this a few months ago. You've got super automatic machines at your venue in Melbourne and I think Sydney now, and you're making takeaway coffees using those?
We had one of the super automatics because Ming he's going to World Latte Art as we speak. So the World Latte Art machine is a thermo. Yeah, good luck, Ming. He's going to be the world champion for sure. We're not actually using it in the shop. It was kind of just there while he was, practicing. But we were using it, like trialing it out for certain drinks, the cold drinks, pistachio lattes, coffees with, lots of cream and ice drinks. And it was really good. The espresso that it makes was really, really good. It's not something that we have put into all of our shops yet, but it's definitely a space that we're
in Sydney, right, though?
Actively. I'm not 100% sure. I don't really have a look at the day-to-day operations of the cafes in other states as much. I think it's definitely something that they were looking into, for sure. But yeah, I think it's great, especially for the takeaway side of things. Like let's focus on what we do best is telling the stories of the coffees that from the producers and that really high end quality of people who want to come and learn more about coffee, and then that takeaway area, if we can reduce the time and the amount of effort and energy that it takes to do that in a high volume. If we can split those two things, it's going to be a good thing for us. Yeah, haven't implemented it yet to my knowledge, but it's definitely a space we're looking into pretty heavily.
Fifth on the commandments, customer service. I think it's almost as important as the product that you're selling. So if people can, and you hear it all the time, if you're going to a nice restaurant but the service is cold, you'll remember that. That's what you come away from remembering. Oh, the waiter was rude or whatever. And in a cafe, it's so much of making the vibe is obviously the customer service, but so much of enjoying the product is the service that you experience as well. And if you make a mistake, good customer service can kind of pad the blow. So say, for example, you make a bad coffee, you give them the wrong milk. It's like, you know what, mistake, the customer comes away if the service is good. You know what, mistakes happen. You're a good guy. I know you didn't mean it.
Yeah.
But if the service is cold, you get the mistake coffee, they go away. I think that sucked in every way possible. 1-star review, never going back.
Yeah.
Customer service is important.
Absolutely. People always remember the way you make them feel. And the more I go on, I think, cafe, everything that we do is really just, how you make people feel, how you connect with people. And something that I've often thought about is defining the difference between service and hospitality. I think those are two different things. A service is I come into Project Zero, I order a coffee, I transact, I wait, I get the coffee in a timely manner, and that's it. That is you delivering a service. But then hospitality goes beyond just the product being served. An example, like I was at Supernormal, an incredible restaurant in Melbourne, and when we sat down, they asked, are we going to a theatre show after? Do we need to be done by a certain time? And I was like pretty blown away because it's just that extra level of attention to detail on their service being amazing. And the difference between the two, and a lot of places, I get good service where it's more transactional, but I don't see as many cafes giving amazing hospitality. And I think the hospitality, that is a huge area of improvement for cafes moving forward, of people really thinking about, how can we add more value? How can we, take that experience to the next level? And it's just that extra level of care in the product that you're serving to make people feel amazing that they're going to keep coming back.
Cannot discount enough how important that is. Number 6 on the list, which you almost leaked before, culture. Culture in the cafe. So we spoke about it before, and I kind of have this belief that staff enjoying their job is almost as important as customers enjoying the product and the service. You know what I mean? You want your team to have each other's backs, and I think you see it manifest in cafes in the form of like people that throw sick days, a lot. Chances are they probably don't enjoy the job. They're happy to have their team members have a harder day without them. But having the good culture at the cafe, so important. That retention's important. It serves the purpose for what you're doing. And they might, forego another job that, let's face it, maybe that pays higher, but they enjoy the job more. So there's so many reasons why culture is important.
Yeah, I know this is point number 6, but I kind of have this as number 1. And if, you're going to open a cafe, I think you need to start with this first. And I think you have a responsibility, if you're starting a business, to create a culture that is, going to push people where they can learn, where they can grow, a safe space for them to, express themselves as well. And yeah, culture is absolutely everything. They're the front line of your business. And, people are actually choosing to work for your cafe. They're going to be spending, if they're a full-time staff, they're spending 40 hours a week at your cafe. And that's actually a choice. And I think some business owners, and I don't blame them, say it's hard to find staff and, it's hard to get people to really invest in what they're doing. But I think you really need to kind of flip the script and think about, this person's actually choosing to work for my business. They're actually choosing to be here for 40 hours a week. And I think you have a responsibility to create an environment for them that is going to push them to grow, and they're not going to be there forever. We know hospitality is oftentimes something that, people aren't going to do for the rest of their lives. But for the time that they're there, what can you do to have a really positive impact for them moving forward in the future? And that's why I think hospitality venues and cafes is an amazing first job for anyone, because hospitality, and if you teach it to them, will pervade any job they go into after that.
Well, it's an excellent introduction to sales, for example. If you've got the skills of hospitality, working in a cafe, and you go on to work at a job where you're selling products, you've got that lingo down. You know how to communicate with people. You haven't. Those communication skills are so important in fields like that.
Yeah.
And kind of getting you into and out of situations as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
If you're like me and you can talk your way out of trouble, then
I don't know why.
You get yourself into plenty, then you're doing great.
Yeah. Your podcast with Jay Kim as well, I just resonated with that so much. And hospitality is everywhere. Like he said, the way that you even preparing for this podcast and, sending the questions through that so that we're prepared and, making people feel comfortable, like that is a form of hospitality. And, I really like Cat and Cloud as well. I reference them all the time. Their podcast is amazing, and it's been a really big resource for me. and they talk about, even customers, as, guests, and inviting them into, it's like inviting them into your house. Like, how would you treat someone who's coming into your house? And that is hospitality as well. How you treat your staff as well. There's hospitality's everywhere. And again, with Danny Meyer's book, Setting the Table, it's all about, hospitality being the kind of revolutionary aspect to any business that will make you succeed.
One of my favorite things to do is have people that are traveling in Melbourne and write them a list of places to go and do and see. And like, my feeling is like, I'm welcoming you to my city or my country, and I really want you to enjoy yourself while you're here. And I think, if hot tip for anyone, if they, thinking they're listening to this podcast and they're thinking, how can I implement this in my daily life or in my shift or whatever? Do that. Things like that. Someone's traveling, write down a list of restaurants and of them to go look at. Suggest some other cafes. Go to some events, places to look at. I couldn't recommend doing that enough. And kind of, I've done desk jobs, I've done sales jobs, and it just took a piece of my soul, and I couldn't do it anymore. And that's back. That's why I'm back doing what I'm doing, because I love it, and I love that people element of it as well. So
and I think cafes are such a special part of culture, because there's so many people, and they'll get off the plane and they'll come straight to Ona, and we see them walk into Ona Melbourne, and they still have all their bags and their luggage, and that's somewhere that they're so excited to go. And you're often, as a cafe, you might be the first point of contact for that person in the city. So you also are representing your city. And like you said, they're going to ask, where should I go for lunch, or where should I go see a show, or got some downtime, what should I do? So you often act as a concierge. And again, like, I can't take credit for this. This is all Cat and Cloud, Jared, Chris, and Chuck, on their podcast, they say that in their cafes, they're like concierge, and, to have a deep level of the community and what you can go and do. And people are going to be that first point of contact, and giving that extra level of hospitality is being able to make their experience of your city just so much better.
Couldn't have said that better myself. So number seven on the commandments, be a specialist. Oh, sorry, offering is the point. But my subcategory to that is be a specialist. So what do I mean by that? So we have made the decision to just do coffee. We want to be specialists in coffee. And some of the benefits of that is, like, I think our coffee tastes better than most. And I think that we deliver it really quickly and with good service. But if we start doing sandwiches as well, and we start doing, granola bowls and all this sort of other stuff, then we're kind of not specialists anymore. We're just a cafe. And there's a lot of sandwich shops opening up around the world, especially in Melbourne these days. And to be honest, I feel like a lot of them would do better if they didn't sell coffee. If they didn't have all these other things that they sold, I think they would sell more sandwiches and they would do it better. And their costs would be lower. Yeah,
definitely. It's always interesting that everyone has to sell coffee. And I went to Chadstone the other day, me and my colleague, and we're just having a look around at the new market stall that they have there, and everyone was doing coffee. Like, there was a bagel place, there was so many different types of businesses, but they were all selling coffee. And I'm like, why does everyone have to sell coffee? Just, lean into, if you want to do bagels, do that to the highest level. And I get that, it's going to be a part of your sales mix to increase spend and revenue, but you also have to think about, if you are going to do those things, what is it going to take away from? And I think your example of, you can make toasties and granola, but for your vision and going back to why you started it, is you don't want to do that. You want to focus on coffee. So, it comes back to your initial kind of mission and vision of your cafe, and understand that every drink that you put on the menu, is that gonna take away from your overall mission and vision that you want for your cafe? If you add smoothies, or if you do pour over coffee, that time away from what it is that you're actually selling as your core product, is that worth it? And for you, you've identified that that's not worth it for me, but other people might find a way to do toasties and granola in a way that doesn't actually retract from their overall vision that they have for their cafe.
But if you're a sandwich shop selling a $25 sandwich, that's really good and it's your main business, but you also sell a $6 coffee that you kind of butcher and don't do well, like, it takes away from the overall experience. Your sandwiches are still excellent, but the overall experience is sort of lower.
Yeah, definitely.
But if you just do the sandwich and not the coffee, because people don't come to you for the coffee, really, that I know of, but you just focus on what you do well, I think you'll sell more of it, you'll make more money, and you'll deliver the service better.
Yeah, especially in Melbourne, I think people love, I mean, for me personally, I want to go to my coffee shop. If I get hot chocolate, I want to go somewhere like Mork and I'm like just going to get a hot chocolate. And people love going to, places that specialize in what they do, unapologetically. So I think somewhere like Melbourne is a great example of that. Even when I was in LA as well, people just did, one thing. It's like they sell donuts and that's it. Places like, Cinnamon Scrolls are popping off here in Melbourne as well. And there's
best thing ever.
Yeah, and there's places that literally just sell Cinnamon Scrolls, and no surprise that they're the best at what they do when you go all in and just focus on that one thing. Pastries, croissants, all those sorts of things.
There's a place that does specialty coffee in Melbourne for like $3.40, but next to it there's like an $18 sandwich. And for me, the language is just kind of weird. It's like, all right, well, you got this dirt cheap coffee and this expensive sandwich, and it's like, I don't know what to make of this. So, but going back to my point, I really endorse being a specialist. I'm not saying don't have food and coffee on your menu, because obviously there's a lot of sick cafes that do, but in a lot of cases, being a specialist, it's a really good thing.
Yeah. The risk is just doing a lot of things and not really doing them well, and, pulling yourself in too many directions. So maybe, especially when you're starting out, maybe nail one thing and then, maybe add things later.
Layers to your game. Number 8 on the list, design. So this is one I'm trying to collect my own thoughts on, to be honest. I don't know where 100% I sit on it, but I think having like a really expensive fit out, to me, the importance of it is not as, I don't think it's actually that high anymore, but I think having functionality in your venue, so designing it properly so that you've got good workflow and all those sorts of things, but it is a comfortable place to come and get a coffee or a sandwich, whatever, is really important.
Totally agree. And I think, again, I keep harping on it, but I think it goes back to your initial mission and vision and, your values that you had for your business to start with. And the lease and the design is going to play into that. And I used to think that the design didn't matter as much. And if you just go, all in on really good product and all those other things, then it doesn't matter. But the more I go on, I think it definitely does matter. And, curating the sort of feel that you want. Again, are you going to be a takeaway coffee shop? Then you probably don't need as much space, and maybe the fit out doesn't matter as much because you're not inviting people into your space. But if you want to be a space where you're inviting people in, they're doing dine-in service, you want to make people feel warm and welcome, then your design has to reflect that. And, spending the money in the right areas. And again, having, the mission and having a really clear vision of what you want will actually help the people designing the cafe help bring that to life. But if you don't really know what it wants to be, you're just going to get a cookie cutter of whatever the architects thinks is the best. And for coffee shops as well, like we do a lot of work, if people are setting up cafes in the design phase, and still they actually they do a lot of design for cafes, but there's so much nuance to it, and coffee is so unique that they still don't understand the workflow considerations and the feel that you want to have. Design, things look great, but they might not be functional.
Functionality is one of the biggest things. Make sure you've got enough storage as well. I think one thing about our cafe is like, I wish we had a storage room, but like storage is like, pardon me, it's gold in the cafe game. You really need it for all the stock that you're going to hold.
Yeah, I say that limitation breeds innovation, and some of the best places that I've seen, small little hole in the wall places like Alley Brew in SA or, Otis and Maeve in WA, some of the cafes that are in our cafe network, and such tiny spaces, but they make it work. And sometimes an abundance actually breeds a bit of laziness, whereas these cafes, there might be 15 square meters, but they're just innovate in the way that, they use the space as well.
Well, you look at places like Patricia and Duke's Coffee Roasters here in Melbourne.
Yeah.
They make like 1,200 coffees a day, and really spaces that aren't that big, but they get it done. They've got a well-oiled machine, and it still looks so tidy and sexy as well. Number 9, cash flow. Need some cash flow. And I think if you're opening your cafe, starting it, make sure you've got a reserve there just for a rainy day, because it's not like every cafe just crushes it from day one. I think a lot of places launch really well these days thanks to social media and things like that. But that's kind of temporary in a lot of cases. Not everyone just sort of crushes it because of social media in perpetuity. A lot of that's temporary. So and we even experienced a bit of that when we opened. I would say make sure you've got a decent amount of cash flow for when you do open. Don't open and have nothing left in your own bank account, because you will cause yourself stress. Have a separate bank account where you keep all your taxes, your 401k or superannuation payments for your staff. And this is something that my business partner does really well. We separate all those things, we calculate what we need, and we don't touch it, because that is bad. That is bad. So just make sure you keep all those things aside, because you need to be on top of those things. Otherwise, you're spelling trouble for yourself.
Yeah. I mean, financial sustainability is, such a big thing. We talk about sustainability, and a lot of people straight away just think of environmental, but financial sustainability is massive as well. And if you want to actually curate the experience that you want, or you want to look after your staff, or you want to deliver people on the experience and the quality of these products, you're going to need money to do that. And if you don't have enough money to look after people, then, it's something that you really, really need to look into. And again, if you don't have the skill set in it, find someone who can help you with it, or talk to someone that has actually done it before and get it in line, because, when you're, making money, it's like so much less stress, and you can really start to live out the vision that you had for your cafe when you started.
Last one on the list, learn from others' mistakes. And I think this is something that I really, really, this is probably one of the things I did better before I opened my cafe, was go and get advice from other people. So, talking to people like yourself, talking to the owner of Patricia, Bowen, that was a good resource for me. Talking to one of my coffee suppliers, Dave Macon, all those things are resources, and find out the things that they did wrong. Hear other people's horror stories, and it really helps prevent disaster for you, or just make what you're doing better. So if you have to go shout someone some dinner, pay for their dinner, take them out, wine them and done, just to learn all this information, do it. It's an investment. Yep. So learn from others' mistakes is a big one.
Listen to this podcast.
Yeah. By the way, listening to this podcast is one of the best pieces of advice you could give. But
that's number 11.
I got to give a shout out to one of our sponsors, who is Time More Coffee Brewing. So if you were listening to that segment before, where we were saying some of the future of the coffee industry is brewing at home, then look no further than Time More. Time More kettles, grinders, scales, everything you need to brew world-class coffee at home, overseas, wherever. TimeMore.com. Look at your local distributor in a country near you. Time More. Timeless moments. What an ad read that was. I feel like I'm getting better at the ad read. Johan, did I segue that in nicely? All right.
Clean.
It's something you gotta do. But let's all right. So we've outlined our 10 suggestions for people opening up a cafe. I wanted to ask you. I wanted to talk about some other things before we go. So one of them was the Best of Panama that just concluded. So for those that might be wondering, Kirk, Rhys, what are you talking about? The Best of Panama is a competition that measures, as you would suggest, the best coffees that Panama has to offer. So producers will submit their coffee. It's done by an international panel, including the other producers themselves, and scored over a couple of days. And at the most recent Best of Panama, there was a clean sweep for all 3 categories. Hacienda Esmeralda.
Hey.
Got to give him a shout out. To my knowledge, this is the first time this has ever been done. So for the varietals category, so different varieties in coffee, they won using their Lorena coffee. For the natural process, they won that too. Coffee scored 97 points.
Crazy.
And for the washed, won that too. 98 points. Can you even imagine cupping a coffee like that?
Yeah. I want to taste it.
Yeah,
But I also think, what's the other 2 points as well? I think that's coming from like competition as well. You're always asking in deliberations, like, why wasn't it full marks? Why wasn't it a 6? And what was it about that coffee that it wasn't 100?
Yeah,
98, so close.
A really good example of this is like the difference between, obviously coffee's scored from 0 to 100, right? That's currently how we score it. And if you've ever watched Breaking Bad, there's that section where Gail Bedeker's talking to Gustavo Fring and he's like, I want to meet the chemist who made this 99% pure meth. Because the difference between like 96 or whatever he was producing and 99 for him was enormous. And the jump from 90, like I've drank a healthy amount of 90-point coffees and it's amazing every time I do it. But I've never tried something that's 98 points. And I just think, I asked Nolan Hirth, who's the owner of Proud Mary Coffee in Australia and the US, and he said he cupped a coffee from Brazil that scored 97 points and he instantly started crying. And it's like, I want that experience. I want the tearjerker coffee. Like, can you imagine what it's like?
Yeah, well, I think like obviously the score doesn't tell the whole story, right? And something like the CVA, coming through is, kind of dispelling, the score from what that a coffee actually tastes like. So I'd love to know like the description and the quality, but it's something that needs to be experienced. Like we can sit here and say, it's this or this points, but pretty special to, have that coffee and, for the people that tried it, people who, are going to buy it, coffee's always getting better as well. And I just think that's really promising as well. Like coffee is obviously extremely challenging to grow. And, even in Panama as well, I just was listening to the Kai Jansen, podcast that you did. And, even for Panama, it's difficult. Obviously the prices and the quality of the coffee is so high, but it's still so difficult. So I think that's actually really positive that coffee is still, scoring as high as it is.
I feel like this was such a flex moment for Esmeralda as well because it's
right?
kind of like Alexander Volkanovski coming back and winning the title because stay with me here. Stay with me because Esmeralda, like, you've had the Lamastas family estates that have gotten a lot of, they've won the best of Panama a couple of times themselves and currently hold the world record price, although I think that's going to be broken this year. And then you look at something like, think of Deborah. They've won the competition a couple of times now, World Barista Championship. And then like I feel like Esmeralda, everyone always knows who it is, but they just really came back and were like, yeah, who's your daddy? That was like it was a big time moment for them, and they just
must have forgot
because they don't. I feel like they don't do a lot of the anaerobics that a lot of the other big producers do now, and they've just always stuck to that classic profile. And Wash Coffee's back, baby.
Yeah, well, they clearly don't need to. And I think it was on one of your other podcasts as well. And I think if you had one coffee to have for the rest of your life, I think clean wash Panama Geisha or clean wash, Ethiopia heirloom, like those sorts of coffees they're always going to be up there because you could have them every single day and you just never get sick of it. So
it'll be interesting to see what those coffees sell for. I think that 98-point washed will break the record, which I think is currently like 13,000 US for a kilo.
Yeah.
I think
might crack 20.
I think we'll crack 20 this year because the demand's never been higher. Yeah. And obviously a 98-point coffee, like, what the hell? Like,
you got to have it. You got to have
it. To drink that coffee, I will give away I'll give a finger. I'll probably just chop off my pinky. Like
how nervous would you be roasting that coffee, brewing that coffee?
Well,
you'd be shaking. Shout
out to Ben Putt here, Benjamin Putt from Monogram Coffee, who roasted all those coffees, and that takes a big set of nuts as well. If you're gonna buy those coffees and you're a roaster, like, maybe just pay Ben to roast it. I wouldn't want it in anyone's hands because he obviously has the profiles roasted on a stronghold. So there you go. But yeah, I would absolutely love to try those coffees, and maybe a certain Rachel Peterson is listening to this and feels generous and wants to do a bit of content and come on the podcast and share some of that with us. I don't know. I'm just spitballing ideas here.
Yeah, Rachel, if you're listening. Get on here.
Maybe
we can go halves. Maybe we can.
I'll do it. No, I'll do it. I'll drop a bit of cash on that. That sounds like an amazing
What's
experience.
the minimum you have to buy?
Oh, well, I think that like
the best. Can't just buy a kilo.
Well, I think often roasters will split it.
Yeah,
so
true.
obviously these things are
Buyers Club.
yeah. Well, these things are auctioned off, but last year I don't even know who bought last year's coffee, which was it was a Elite Estate geisha of some sort, and yeah, sold for $13 for a kilo, and I got to try it actually. That was fantastic.
Yeah. What's the gap like diminishing returns though? Like what price is it like, between 300 a kilo to, $13,000 a kilo?
Look, like you like for you and me probably wouldn't get that much value out of it. But like that's a high roller coffee.
Yeah.
And like in one way I'm kind of thinking it's really good that it's really great that this is happening for the coffee industry. But it's like if you ask like a lot of baristas and like if someone else outside the industry is asking us, it's like, yeah, like, you try it once, but like you were saying, like there's plenty of other great washed geishas from Panama, washed Ethiopians that are excellent. That it is good to see that coffee's able to have this status. And I think the importance is growing more and more each year, kind of becoming more like wine at that top end of the industry.
Yeah.
Having said that though, you want to make sure it's in good hands, obviously for the roasting part and then for the brewing part and the serving part. Like you want to have that sommelier level barista that knows all the details. If you're paying that much for a coffee, you want the service to accompany it, right?
100%.
You want it in the hands of someone who's very capable of brewing it and very capable of telling the story. Because let's face it, rich people are going to buy that coffee, and if you're paying that much out for a coffee, yeah, you deserve the full service, the full package, the full suite.
Yep.
So I hope it goes into good hands. Let's talk about some UFC. So Rhys and I catch up. Understand if you don't want to listen to this part, but I want to talk about it because Rhys is here. So we catch up and watch some of the UFC from time to time. A couple of big fights happening. And I'll preface actually all this by saying that a lot of people probably get turned off it because of the violence, right?
Yep.
Understandable. And a lot of people actually sort of don't understand the fandom as well. And you and I had this discussion the other day, and it's like, I feel so much safer going to the pub watching some fights than I do going to watching some football. The fandom in MMA and UFC is so much more polite, non-violent, and less confrontational than a football game. Like you look at the way soccer fans interact.
Oh yeah.
You don't see MMA fighters do that. You look at the way some like people that go to Aussie Rules football games punch on in the stands. I've never seen that happen at like the pub where I go to. Of course, it would happen somewhere, but like actually, it's the fandom and the culture is a lot more pleasant.
Yep. Yeah, because if you have fighters in the crowd, it's probably like not the best place to start a fight. I wouldn't have thought.
No.
So
no.
Whereas at the footy, a lot of people haven't trained martial arts. They don't understand, the damage and that can be done. Whereas, people who watch the UFC, majority of the people, that I see at the pub or even at a UFC event, it's like there's a lot of people that actually train martial arts. And, if you do, you actually know that, you don't actually really want to get into a fight because you actually know the damage that can be done. So, yeah, I feel like way safer watching the UFC than, going to a footy match, or I can't even imagine overseas, like, looks, in Europe and South America, like some of those games look absolutely crazy, pretty violent. So
one of my dreams is to one day like make coffee at one of those boxing events in Saudi Arabia, Canelo versus Crawford happening in a few months. I would love to be there making a coffee backstage for all of those guys. Like, I love sharing coffee with these guys.
Yeah, with like the Khabib team, like I know they always like bring a coffee machine.
Yeah, well, I think I saw Islam Makhachev brewing a V60, I think, one time, and that was pretty cool. So, hey, speaking of which, who you got for this weekend? Ilia Topuria, Charles Oliveira.
Man, my heart says Oliveira, but I think my head says Topuria. Yeah. I
think Topuria is the best boxer in the UFC, the best boxer I've ever seen in the UFC. He uses the hands really well. He's vicious. Like he's in personality, he's just like really, really vicious. But he's just, if you watch the way he took down Volkanovski, just like hands are always up, has excellent striking ability and power. Same with Max Holloway. Who thought he could do that to
yeah.
Max Holloway?
Yeah,
It's just
no
like
one, right?
unbelievable.
Yeah, he was super clean. Oliveira has some of the best jiu-jitsu though for MMA. So I think, yeah, his chance is probably on the ground, but, again, Toporia's, Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt as well. So even if it goes to the ground, it's not going to be easy, but I think that's where Oliveira probably has his best chance, but can he find a way to get it to the ground as well? That's the other thing, but that's a banger. That's an awesome fight.
It's going to be unreal. I can't wait to go watch it this weekend. Back to coffee stuff now.
Mm-hmm.
Brewers Cup. So we just concluded the World Brewers Cup in Jakarta, and I was lucky enough to watch some of the routines and interview some of the contestants as well. And I don't think the quality has ever been higher. I think this year, some like Brewers Cup is a bit of a boring watch, if you ask me. And most people would agree because it's like it's not like you can taste the coffee as a viewer.
Yeah.
And you're seeing a lot of people wax poetic about things. I was like, yeah, I've seen this before. But this year, I mean, the standard was really high.
Yeah.
And you look at Carlos Escobar, and it's like that's something anyone could watch. You look at Bayu, that amazing story from Indonesia, and then of course the winner George Panjang. Like, try and argue with those facts. He's just like laying it all on the tables, to do with this temperature. It's like very factual. Like the standard's never been higher.
Yeah, I think this year was just a crazy step up. Again, I think it goes in cycles where you have years of like incredible innovation in, the brewing or the processing of coffee, and then things kind of circle more like hospitality and, innovation on the, maybe social impact of things. And then I think we've just seen the year where, we've gone, back into innovation on the actual brewing side of things. And you've said it in previous podcasts, how much more can you go? How many more things can you keep discovering to make coffee better? And yeah, I'm so impressed by how people just keep rocking up and, innovating and bringing new things to the table for coffee. And yeah, Carlos's routine was absolutely incredible. I think he was the best presented routine that I'd, probably seen, and the passion, you could actually even feel it, through the screen. And, George's routine was kind of like the opposite to that, but, just undeniable with the things that he was researching. The standard was, super, super high.
Yeah, he was a really interesting guy. Doesn't speak much English and was able to.
Oh, that's impressive.
Yeah, because I interviewed him backstage, and tragically, the videographer that was with us lost the SD card that had those interviews, and I was like, that was a bitter pill to swallow. But anyway, with Carlos as well, like you felt the message of what he was saying, right? And it had a purpose outside of what he was doing. It has a long-lasting purpose for the whole coffee industry. And it started this conversation that, I've been putting a lot on the podcast and on our Instagram recently. And it's like this renewal, we face this cliff of kind of aging coffee farmers. And, a lot of the coffee farmers are getting up there close to 60. And then once they can't coffee farm anymore, because let's face it, it's physically backbreaking work, and there's no younger generation to produce the coffee. That's a problem.
Yeah, they don't want to do it, right? They don't want to, take over the family farm. And, there's so much more probably opportunity as well for them to, not continue farming, go other places, go to university, study, do other things other than agriculture. Because, to be honest, agricultural, whether it's coffee or, milk or whatever it is that you're growing, it's, agriculture in general is such a tough industry, and it's so weather dependent, it's high risk. So I don't blame them, to be honest, but I think that's where we have a really big responsibility as well. If we want to continue to have these coffees, we need to actually start paying for it as well, and actually start seeing the value in it, and that has to trickle down to the consumer as well. They need to pay for it so everyone can be sustainable. Otherwise, they just won't grow coffee anymore, and have to find something else.
We just recorded. We went to Bandung, which is about 4-hour drive from Jakarta, and we recorded essentially a mini documentary. So we were just taking footage, and we thought we've got enough here to just put it all together. So we'll be releasing that on YouTube in a few weeks. So if you're listening to this, then I implore you to check that out. But it actually kind of like, having us go and do it, like some of us couldn't actually walk up the hill because it was so slippery, and the angle's so high, and you're at high altitude and you're getting sweaty. And I just got absolutely destroyed by mosquitoes. They just love my white skin. They just like, just absolutely destroyed me.
I like your blood type.
Yeah, love my blood type. And then you got to carry a sack going down as well. Yeah. And then you got to process it and just picking out the mucilage, of the wash coffees as well. I'm like, damn, do you really have to do this?
Yeah.
It's just like the word, like most of us in Western countries would just cry having to do that for a week. Let's face it.
Yeah.
Like we're too weak to do it. Like we couldn't. And, but these people, they do it for their livelihood. And I think we need to respect the artistry for one, but I guess make it economically viable and more enjoyable.
Absolutely. So, I was lucky enough to be part of Ona's new Bridge to Origin program, where we send in groups of our staff to Nicaragua and Finca El Arbol and spending like a week experience there. Owner there, Claudia Lovo, she is absolutely incredible. She studies like permaculture and she's an agronomist and she's like a wealth of knowledge. She has a dry mill over there, Brita Azul. And just spending a week there, and with Adan as well, who is the farm manager there. And, some of the things that he does, we planted one tree and, I'm pretty fit, like I look after myself. Planted one tree and I was like, this is pretty tiring.
You're not farm strong, Rhys.
Not farm strong at all. And, he said that him and his team can plant, 80 to 100 trees in a day.
Wow.
And I was like, that is just exhausting. Or even just taking the trees from the nursery and just, loosening up the roots before you plant it. I was like, we were absolutely cooked. And then, they're doing that 80 to 100 times a day. And I just realized, it was so potent when you're doing it in the moment of how hard they work and they dedicate their lives to it as well. And I think that's a really good perspective as well. We've obviously talked about what makes a great cafe, but at the end of the day, we have pretty good, living standards and opportunities here in Australia. And if it doesn't go right, you can just move on and get a pretty well-paying job. But people who grow coffee, it's often, their lives of, generations of, people, and it's their whole life. It's 7 days a week, 365. So they definitely work very, very hard so that we can enjoy the coffee in these cafes. So, I think we really need to, start seeing the value in it more and charging what we need to for our whole industry to be sustainable.
And I think in a context of what I'm doing now with making the podcast and getting into making content, I've never felt like I've had a better purpose for doing it than I do right now. Mm-hmm. I think as an industry, making that connection between creating that connection between what we serve in the cup and how it's grown has never been more important, but we've never really been better equipped to be able to deliver it. Mm-hmm. Like, not everyone can obviously go to a coffee farm. It's not accessible, it's expensive, yada, yada, yada. But like making content around this, telling this story like I'm trying to do right now, going to Origin, getting the videos and all that sort of stuff that we'll make in the future. I've never been more resolute in why I'm doing this. And I think that's the connection that we need to make better in the future. It's an absolute must.
Yeah.
Making good coffee is one thing, getting good values is another, but like at the end of the day, you've got an implied responsibility if you're in this industry for some of those things. And I'm not saying everyone has to change their practice today and trying to give a great big lecture on all that shit. But like, we've all got to do at least something to make this better and more sustainable. And look, if you can help me out as well, if you're listening by just subscribing or telling some friends, then I can get more sponsorship. I can do more things to go and do these things and keep telling your story. So do that.
Yeah. I mean, like Gilberto said, coffee industry is the industry of people, and the more that we connect with each other, share stories, we're going to work harder. And I felt that responsibility like so much more to do what I can on my side of the industry, whatever that is. And, helping cafes is, that's one of the things that I do. And again, I have that, desire to, I don't at this point want to open a cafe of my own, but I know that I have the skill set to connect people together with, people who do have a burning desire to do it. I want to help them be able to share those stories and connect with the people who've come before me and worked so hard in the coffee chain to actually deliver that. I think the least that we can do is do everything that we can to express that to the highest level and quality that we can. And I think what you're doing here is, amazing. And anyone that puts content out there, whether it's podcasts or YouTube or shares this information, the more, the better. So.
No, I totally agree. And thank you for those kind words. And I think this podcast that we've done is, to wrap up, is an excellent resource for anyone that wants to refresh what they're currently doing, or if they're currently opening up. So this is an excellent resource for you. So if you have anyone that's in your life that's thinking about opening a business in this field, suggest this podcast, I would say. Obviously, we're powered by our business, Project Zero Coffee. So if you want to support us, then you can go to projectzero.coffee. If you're inside of Australia, got some beautiful blends going on at the moment and some single origins coming soon and some new stuff coming up. So if you want to support us, projectzero.coffee. Rhys Woods, thank you so much for coming on. This is, again, excellent resource for everyone, and your knowledge today will help other people, I'm sure. And It's been an excellent podcast.
Yes, thank you. I actually have a gift for you as well.
A gift?
Yes.
Jeepers.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. So, we've been doing, it's been 10 years since Sasha Zestich delivered raspberry candy on the world stage. So I have a little, raspberry candy gift pack for you.
Raspberry candy gift pack.
So open it up. Got some stuff in there.
Damn.
Been released some raspberry candy drip bags lately. And
raspberry candy drip bags. Ooh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Shout out to Ona, one of the, I guess, title sponsor for today's episode. A bag of raspberry candy. I will take that.
I should have given you the beanie beforehand. You could have worn the.
Well, no, this is great. This is great. Raspberry candy. I don't think there's any blend that's more recognized around the world as raspberry candy. Like we serve one called strawberry cheesecake at our shop, which you can buy online. And people whenever they drink it, they're like, it reminds me of raspberry candy, which I actually take as a huge compliment because, if you remember the story, Sasha Stechich used this on stage, said he had a drink taste like raspberry candy. One of the most iconic moments on a barista competition stage. And it's so good that people get to enjoy that, at their home, at a cafe, whatever, raspberry candy. I love it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yeah, it's definitely the blend that changed my perception of what I think milk coffee can be. And, it's really nice to see where, amplifying that little, sub-brand at Ona and, really championing it, in an approachable way as well. You can brew those, anywhere. So
10 years celebrating a coffee brand.
Exactly.
I love it. Well, that just about wraps it up. We've been going for what, like an hour and a half now? Probably more. Yeah, fair while. So, time more, projectzero.coffee, bit of raspberry candy too if you need from Ona Coffee. Rhys Woods, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Hooroo, everyone.
Pleasure. Ciao. Hooroo.